in-person recital as well. Let's see what happens in May. Okay, and bringing in the audience on Zoom. Okay, so we should be live on YouTube now.
Let me check.
First recital. Wow. There we go. We are. Okay, welcome everybody. We've just opened the doors here. We are streaming live on YouTube, and we have our people filtering into the audience there. I see some all familiar names actually at the moment. It's great to see you all from across the country. I see people from Toronto area, I see Joe out in Kelowna. Gwen, I believe, is in Alberta. Welcome everybody. I am Derek Auger, Executive Director with Conservatory Canada. Today I have Liz Craig joining us from Toronto, and we have Alessandra Dicienzo, another CC examiner, joining us shortly any minute. She was just teaching till the top of the hour, and she's going to join us to talk today about digital badges. And we're excited to present this again, and I'm sure those of you that are here and watching on YouTube are curious to see and hear all about this new offering and what it means for you. Just a few housekeeping things. Welcome to the Friday webinar. First of all, every Friday, we try to host one of these on various topics, ranging from pedagogical research to new information that we're offering to someone who's got repertoire sessions that they want to share from their music. And I'm sure you're all familiar and have seen it all. If you haven't been to the CCTV YouTube channel, check it out. All the replays live there, so you don't have to register or worry about getting a replay link. You can watch everything there. I've got them all dedicated into playlists. So there's a lot of content there. Next Friday, let's see, where are we at? We're at February 3rd. So February 10th, next Friday, we're going to have Cecile and Eleanor back. We're going to talk about more music by women composers, and they're going to be featuring British composers on that particular segment. You can follow all of their past webinars. There's many. They're here once a month talking to us about the latest music that they're finding online. And here comes Alessandra now. And there she's connected. Sandra, welcome. We're just getting started here. I'm just going through a little introduction for everybody. February 17th, we are going to have Marjorie Purdy back, who was with us last week, to talk about beginner piano and a whole series that we're launching on teaching beginners. And she's going to talk about keyboard connection for kids. And this is not necessarily technique on playing scales, chords, and arpeggios, but how to actually interface and get students to work with the instrument and sharing their body weight and arm weight and all that kind of stuff. She's going to give us all of her tips and tricks, and I have it on good authority that she's presented that workshop several times to teachers in British Columbia, and she's looking forward to presenting to all of us as well. So watch your inbox for registration links to that. For those of you that like to attend live like this, so that you can ask questions live, or you can watch any of these, of course, on CCTV YouTube channel. So Liz and Alessandra, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you here. You were on the committee to help us put this digital badge idea together a couple of years ago. I came to you, and we have a couple of others that we had on a webinar back in the fall. Samantha Atkinson, Don Keim, and Andrew Harbridge, and the six of us sat down and decided how could we create something for students that we're not reaching through the traditional exams. I've got a poll that I'm going to send out later to all of you here just on the screen, a Zoom poll, just to get some ideas and some feedback on what you think of digital badges. But when I poll teachers regularly, and I did meet with a small ORMTA group this morning in Newmarket, Ontario, and yeah, 5 to 10% of our students are doing exams. Maybe Sandra, I suspect it's a little more than that. There are pockets where students you're getting more of your studio. I know myself, maybe about 5% of my students actually do an exam during the year. And what do we do with the other 95% when they have just enough commitment to prepare something, but there's no way, they just don't practice regularly enough, or there are some other limiting factors in the way, the timing isn't right ever. We were wondering if there was another light version of the assessment that might be a bit more meaningful, a bit more inclusive, something that we can involve students digitally and get them engaged in the assessment process so that they can measure their success, they can have a goal. And we came up with all sorts of other things in the meantime. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start sharing my screen here. I'm just going to show you a little bit on the website where you can find the information. Here's our homepage here. conservatorycanada.ca. I know some of you were getting reports, some of you are having trouble finding the website, or you say it's under construction. Those of you that are doing that are probably heading to our old teacher portal at ccexaminations.ca. That one's no longer working. We have a new teacher portal, of course, but all the website information is at conservatorycanada.ca. And you can find the digital badge information in several places. Number one is the latest news. There's a news article here. If I scroll here, it is new digital badge assessments that was published in September. It's a nice little article. In the meantime, on the learning tab, we've got the digital badge menu here, and that takes you to a quick description and also a syllabus link here at the bottom, piano repertoire digital badge syllabus. If you click on that, this is the actual copy of the syllabus and telling you exactly what's involved, the requirements, guide to choosing repertoire, notes on recording pieces and how performances are assessed, as well as the fee schedules. Everything's there that you need to know at that link on digital badges. And then if you scroll down on the homepage, actually, if I go back to the homepage, further down here, we've got a section on digital badges here. This is, where the public can see these things the best, I think, and maybe where you want to direct parents if they're interested, learn more about digital badges, and it goes straight to that same digital badge page. So the website's finally been updated over the past few months with all that information there. And out of the work, as we talked to a bunch of you that have already done the digital badges, we're coming out with a few interesting themes in terms of how it's assessed, how you're finding it's working in your studio. And the one thing I noticed is that it creates a really unique process that I didn't quite expect for students. And that is the whole thrust of digital badges are pre-recorded pieces. And what I've been saying is that students can create their ideal performances. And when they submit those without the pressure of performance, it means a little bit more to them somehow, and they get involved in the process that to me takes a little more time than I thought it would, but it's time that's incredibly well spent. And so maybe we'll talk a little bit about what digital badges are, what the process is, just so you have an idea. And then we'll flesh it out with some other ideas, because I know Liz and Sandra both have really great ideas about how they want to use this in their studio and what they're looking forward to in it. So digital badges, again, we want it to be all inclusive. And it sort of grew out of an idea where we had thought about how do we get the exam into little modules where students can work on little pieces of it at a time and submit it later at the end of whatever term of time. There's no limit on it for an actual assessment, so that they don't have to sit down and do everything all at once. I know for me, when my students get together, we do all the requirements, but it's so hard to get them to focus so that they can do it all at once in a 20-minute sitting with an examiner, or 30 minutes sitting, whatever it is. So we decided to start with repertoire. And the concept is that students pre-record 3 pieces of repertoire whenever they want, anytime throughout the year or period of years or months or weeks, whatever it is. And they can work on them one at a time and record them multiple times until they're happy with what their final product is. They can submit 3 sharing links to us through their student portal, and then an examiner will go in and give detailed feedback in a way that we can't do on an exam. On an exam, there are so many things to juggle, timelines, things that can distract us, honestly. We can't write so much. It's not so much an adjudication. It's just a few points to justify the mark that we're giving. In a festival adjudication, I find it quite similar when I'm adjudicating at a festival, where you're pressed for time, often have to decide first, second, and third. You're trying to be diplomatic. You've got so many things running through your head, and there's really, tight timelines, and you just can't always get it right. I find with digital badges, when we're assessing, we can get it right because we listen to it at least twice, I would say. Sometimes I even go back and listen to a performance a third time, so that the feedback I give the student can be very well scripted, really concise, and really meaningful. And they get it in a timely manner so that they can go back and have a look at it. The music's still fresh in their body, and they can relate, hopefully, to the feedback that they're getting. Again, the process unfolds open-ended. The repertoire is open-ended. They register at any from levels 1 to 10. It's only for piano repertoire right now. We're going to open it up to voice repertoire, hopefully pretty soon in the coming months. But students, you can consult the syllabus list for repertoire, but it's really whatever you think it is. You don't even have to get pre-approval for the pieces, as long as you think you as a teacher yourself, that these pieces are at that level if they're not in our syllabus lists. So you have a lot of choice and freedom in the way you use it. And when we give the feedback, we've established a gold, silver, and bronze standing. So a student gets a digital badge, much like you see on the screen right now. If a student at level 1 got gold, that's what the badge looks like. Gold is indicative of somewhere around an 86% or higher on an exam sort of marking standard. Silver is anywhere, from 74 to about 86, and bronze would be less than 74. So maybe has some pulse or rhythmic issues that are quite serious. And in any case, the student can take the feedback if they want, resubmit their music if they've worked on it a little further for half of the fee so that they can up their standing. And what we try to do in the feedback is give them really detailed feedback so they know exactly what to fix next to raise that standing. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how it is. You can work with students. Students can work on their own. The recording can be done at home with the student in the smartphone. The recording can be done in the teacher studio. That's what I like to do. And when you get into the process, it's really interesting to see the students when they actually have to watch themselves play. At first, their first take, they may feel ready to do it. And then they play, and any number of things can happen, of course. And no matter how bad it is, I make them watch the recording. And then right away, they're hooked into a process. They either want to try it again right there that moment, but most often they realize they need another week to refine this. And sometimes this goes on for 6 weeks for one piece before they are happy with it. And that excites me because it kind of takes the control out of my hands. I can direct things, of course, but the work is really up to them, and they really start to own the work and the process, and they fall in love with the process in a different way than just me telling them. They actually get to see for themselves what they sound like. And there's a pressure to submit something that's an ideal performance. And so that's the one thing I've really been blown away with so far, is just how powerful it is. And I've learned to allot a little bit more time than I thought might be necessary for students to submit 3 pieces. Not that it's a daunting task, but I've had students run out of time even, and we have to submit something that's only at a silver standing. And that turns out that's probably somewhat the norm. But I think students are going home and taking away something that's a lot more meaningful than it might be in another exam situation or even in a festival situation. So that's just in a nutshell what it's all about. And I wanted to bring Liz and Sandra on today just to share the space and talk about their experience with it and see what they have to say. So let's go to Liz first, because I know, Liz, you've done a little bit of assessing of this so far. How are you feeling with it so far, and what went through your mind in general as we put this whole thing together?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. So in general, I think the more opportunities our students have, the better, and the more different types of experiences they have, because we all have students that are more shy, that don't necessarily like to be put on the spot, right? Even though performing is usually, there's an element of that, even when you're recording, right? You're being put on the spot. But it's sort of the softest, most comfortable way. Well, I haven't put any of my students in yet. I have been on the other side as the examiner for a few of these exams. And I really enjoy it because I get to sit back, as Derek said, and watch it a few times and really think about what feedback I can give that is meaningful, that they can really take away and use for their future performances of the same piece or other pieces too, right? Speaking as a teacher, I try to give them really concrete, usable feedback. And it's giving them that just gold, silver, bronze as well. It's a bit nicer because you don't have to land on a certain number necessarily, which it's a bit of an abstract thing anyways. But they really get a sense of kind of where they land on that, those 3 tiers. And I do have some students who I'm thinking of putting forward for this that just need some kind of a goal without being overwhelmed by the whole exam process, right? And as you mentioned, being able to listen back and hone their performance without being, in the moment and stressed out about it. And it lends itself to, future careers with recording. I mean, professional musicians do this all the time, right? They don't just take their first recording and put it on the album. They listen, they edit for weeks and weeks. So that's real life, right? So I think for students, for a lot of different students, this could be a great opportunity. The other thing I was thinking is some of my students, because they haven't done an exam in a while, they ask me, oh, what level am I at? Because then they'll start to talk to their friends who maybe say, oh, I'm at level this, and they want to get a sense of where they're at. So this is a good way to actually give them that stamp of saying you're gold level 4, and they can have that as a concrete measurement without having done the whole exam. But they can still bring that, to their friends and family and say, hey, look what I've achieved. So yeah.
That's a great insight. I hadn't thought about that before, but you certainly get a lot of students like that. Yeah, don't get into the exam system. They hear their friends talking about
where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to know. And sometimes I'll be working with students on a few different pieces of different levels, right? Sometimes you want to have one piece that's a bit of a stretch for them, and then some that are a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But then they don't have a sense necessarily of where they land in terms of level. So this could be a good middle ground where they get that feedback, and they have to have at least three at that level, of course,
Yeah.
to get so they have to do enough to get that, but it gives them a sense of accomplishment as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, that's really good insight. Now, Sandra, how do you plan to use this in your studio? And what occurs to you as you work through this, start to think about this process? Just got to take yourself off mute there.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So this was my first year putting my students into the digital badges, and I've got about 10 students that I've already targeted for this experience. And I was looking at the list of students and looking at the reason why I kind of selected these particular students for it. And several I selected because they don't have the support. They work very independently and they're young. And to do a full exam without parents there to kind of help them with checkpoints or be there for encouragement or to listen in on practice is like they're very independent. They're good students, but it would be a lot for them to handle on their own. And so I thought, you know what, if they just have this goal of the three pieces, this is a manageable thing for a person who's younger, working more independently. That's something that I can help them with and that they can work with on their own. And I thought that is a nice goal for them. And I have one student who has a brain injury. And so he is not able to play technique very well or at the speeds required for his level. He'll never be able to achieve this, but he can play pieces and put things together. And of course, we strategically choose pieces for him that would, you can be successful at. And that also he can just work at this at his own time and then to make the video. And we're going to have a little fun with those videos with him. So for him, an exam is never a possibility. So he can't go into a competition or really have a lot of just the average kind of performance opportunities. So doing the digital badge, he was really excited about this idea. And he liked the idea of the scoring, like getting gold, silver, bronze. Like you could see this was an exciting idea for him. So I'm excited as he's picking his repertoire now, how it will all come together. I think that's going to be great. And then one of my students on the complete opposite end is such a high achiever that she loves pianos, practicing, like started in level 5 and now is already starting to even play some level 7 things. I'm like, oh my gosh, kid is like a speeding bullet. So I don't want to stop her. I don't want to hold her back too much with an exam, which is kind of like a lot of things. And she's able to do all the tasks. And I thought, well, I don't really need to hold her down. So using the digital badge is great. So I say, you know what, here, let's freeze. We'll get these three pieces that you have at level 6. Let's, get some feedback and they're going to be amazing. And submit them. And then that's sort of like your accomplishment that you've passed that grade in a sense. And then we just kind of keep on trucking and get her going. So that's like a completely other extreme of a situation. And then I have a couple who are senior students. So these are kids who are teenagers. They've already done like their grade 7 or 8 exam. They got their high school credit and they're dedicated to piano and they play at like level 9, 10, even associate level, but they don't want to do history exams and theory exams. Like they don't want that element. They just want to be able to play and to play really, really high level music and enjoy that. And so one person has decided, I marketed them as this personal challenge, like get these 3 really top level pieces and submit them for a feedback, not just from me, but from somebody else, an external head saying to you, hey, this was great, so work on this and see where you sit, so it's a good experience for them to have that. So they have that one extra thing that they have to work for and make their piece just that little bit better too, right? So I think that's good. So I have been kind of using this word personal challenge for the students, and they've been really kind of taking this to heart, like, oh, okay, this is my personal challenge for the year to get these 3 pieces and do the video. One of my students, like Liz was saying, he just does not enjoy live performances, anything to do with performing for others. So when he heard it was video, he was like, oh, I'll do that, like, so because I wanted him to try level 5 exam, but he was like, was there a person? Like, he was not into it. But as soon as it was, well, you just send the video. Oh, okay, yeah. And then it was totally okay. So you always have a few students like this as well. So I've just found that, I mean, I've just found so many reasons why it's become useful, and that they don't have to do the full exam. And it just gives a whole bunch of kids another reason why they need to, like, maybe practice a little better or refine the work they're doing just that little bit extra, and just reach for that little level of excellence, that little bit more, and making it all about them. So personal challenge, the digital badge, that's how it went down in my studio this year.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about how that works out in the end. I know when we were putting this all together and we started talking about the reward, the intrinsic reward of the digital badge, and why this could be important, or how we could market it to be important for students. What do you think is the motivating factor behind this all for them when we try to sell it to them and say, hey, this is something you could be good at or could try? Either of you have any thoughts?
I could speak to that a bit.
Yeah.
I think, as I was saying previously, everyone has that feeling of like kind of comparing themselves to their peers, comparing them to other people their age, or even people in their family. Like, oh, my dad got to this level, or there's this sense out there of there's a system of levels, right? And so the fact that they can be part of that and they can say, I've done this. It's something that they've been shown from an external body, right? Like another person besides their teacher that's said, hey, yeah, you've got this, you've got these 3 pieces, and they even have the 3 pieces recorded that they could share with other people too, right? If they wanted. So I think that motivation comes from seeing that they kind of fit into this bigger picture of music education in Canada, in a sense. And getting their pieces to that level that they're polished, they have a recording of it. So they can always look back, maybe even a year later, you can look back and say, hey, remember when we learned this piece? And you actually have a really good quality recording of it that they have forever. So
Right.
There's that too.
Yeah, there's that element of archive we talked about that's listed in the syllabus too. Yeah, I think that's really important. No matter who holds the archive, it's just something you can always refer back to. And I find myself referring back to these old performances already from last spring when we tried it out the first time with a few people. And they can see the difference in their playing, and they can comment on it, and further motivates them and excites them even further. Yeah. What about the idea of an intrinsic reward? I mean, sometimes, the certificate exam, it's all about getting a certificate, and most people don't even print that off anymore, I don't think, or they get that mark. What is it about this little digital badge, do you think, that might excite students? Do you think we've hit on the right thing there?
Like, personally, I think the kids, they get a lot of this stuff in sports all the time. So for music, there's not as much of that kind of reward system. Unless maybe if you go into like a competitive festival, you might win a ribbon or a medal or something like that. But for the most of your study, you don't really get awards for, like in that sense, like the gold, the silver, the bronze. Like, I think that's appealing to the kids too, that idea of an achievement of this award kind of thing. And I think, I can only speak for the students that I've talked to about with the badge. Just the idea of trying their very best on these 3 things. Like, I think also the idea that it's 3 pieces, it seems very manageable. Like, I think that was very, like, it felt very settling to them. Oh yeah, it's only these 3 songs, and they probably already had 1 or 2 already sort of on the go, and it felt very attainable. So I think the idea of getting a gold is something that was possible, and I think that was very motivating too.
Yeah. Okay, cool. About recording itself, I know if anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat box for us, and we'll monitor the chat box. If anything's coming up and you want to know a little bit more about how this is all put together and what students can do to make recordings and how they get submitted. First of all, students can register in their student portal anytime. We have those new student teacher portals. Teachers can even register on their behalf if you want, but we suggest that the students do the registration for digital badges through their portal. And then when they're done, what they have to do is submit sharing links of some sort. Posting them on a YouTube channel and making them unlisted is probably the easiest way in some ways for those that are hooked up with that. But we will take any other sharing link, whatever you can upload. But when students are ready to upload, you'll see these really clear boxes in the student portal where students upload the URL, put the name of the piece in the composer, hit submit when they're all in there, and then right away an examiner is triggered to have a look at it. So that's kind of how that works. And then in terms of the logistical recording, whatever equipment you can have, I mean, these days it's so easy on an iPad or a phone, even just a smartphone can record quite well. I myself, I do all the recordings in the studio here in the teaching studio so that I can use, a good webcam. I can use an external microphone so that I capture a little better audio and still using the acoustic piano. And I find that works pretty well. But everyone's going to have their own way of doing it. Students can do it just with the smartphone tilted up on the edge of the dashboard, looking down the keyboard. We see that a lot in the recordings too. So whatever you can imagine for how to do it. I know a lot of us got used to doing recorded performances for recitals. And now transitioning back to in-person recitals, one thing Liz said, it made me think, yeah, I think I would probably do this with students' recital pieces at least, in advance of the digital badge, because if they can get it ready for that, they should be better able to handle that stress of in-person performance that they haven't had for 3 years. I imagine a lot of students are not going to want to do the in-person recital anymore. It's just become foreign to them. A lot of younger students, they don't even know what it means. And it could probably be quite difficult for a lot of them to get used to that again. But this might be a way to at least steady their nervous system around that music that they hope to perform, so that if they do get nervous, they've got something to rely on there that's a bit more reliable. I don't see any questions yet.
Speaking to that too,
Yeah,
Derek,
go ahead, Liz.
sometimes what I've been doing is just doing a quick recording just with my phone, just in the moment in the lesson. It's not a polished recording, just to see where they're at that week. And then we watch it back the next week and just get that sense of like, you already did this last week, or you've proven you can perform this. Like, I have video evidence, sometimes I'll say. So,
Yeah.
if they get nervous, like, it's a little bit more of like proof that they can do it. So
Yeah.
it helps. It does help bolster that confidence. And with the achievement thing too, a lot of things nowadays, games and apps, there's these badges that are built into the games. So it's like sort of just part of their vocabulary is there's these achievements you can get whenever you do a new program on your phone or whatever. So it's sort of something that's just part of the vocabulary of kids these days. And if they are a high achieving student, they might, really get hooked into that and see how fast they can get from level to level, like it's very on their own sort of independent thing that they can really achieve quickly.
Yeah, I can see a lot of students in the end, even those, I'm realizing there are a lot of learners out there that don't have teachers, that are teaching themselves. And I could see those types of students getting into this as well, or even adult learners who are working only part-time with a teacher or on their own could use this as an interesting kind of way to do it. And we hope to market it to those people somehow if we can reach them. Right now, though, we're committed to, of course, the CC teachers and getting this out through those channels. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The whole idea of self-study is becoming popular. And this is a great way for those students that want to do or have to do it that way to get some kind of feedback and some kind of acknowledgement that, yeah, hey, you are on the right track. Or no, you need to purchase a metronome and figure out how to use it, which is pretty common. Okay, so that's a little bit about how they're all put together. Maybe I'll just deflect over to the syllabus here for a second so we can see it. And I'm going to share my screen just a moment. And we'll go through it a little bit more detail so that everybody understands, or that might just prompt some more questions about the logistics of how this all works. Okay, so here's the syllabus here. So in keeping with our mission to foster musical talent and potential, which is what we're all about at Conservatory Canada, the badges are a fun new way for students to measure their progress and achievement in a way that is recreational, inclusive, and accessible. Building on our experience with e-exams, which we started in 2007, the submission process for digital badges is entirely online and digital and relies on submitted students' recordings rather than live performances. The requirement or the commitment required for earning a digital badge is more flexible and open-ended than the traditional exam, allowing students more control over the process. The new digital badges are designed to give all students the opportunity to measure their success and get unbiased feedback on their music making. It's not meant to replace the traditional certificate exam, by any means, but it can serve as a stepping stone to that. And if they choose, students that want to, you sense they're maybe close, you try this digital badge first, and then they've got a better idea of how to put the whole thing together. They may say, well, now I can challenge myself to do an exam. And it's a good way to get them into that kind of mode, I think. The badges are intended to motivate students and instill in them a sense of accomplishment and pride. It may benefit students in any number of ways, and we've talked about pretty much all of these already, but it provides a performance goal to work toward, provides expert feedback on repertoire without the pressure of live performance, allows students to work at their own pace, and students can prepare individual pieces one at a time if they need to. Students have greater control and creative freedom in expressing their musicianship. They can choose the music that's most relevant to them, and they can display it in a way that may be novel if they want. They've got the license to do that in this format. Students can submit at any time of the year whenever they're ready, and it allows greater accessibility for students who are unable to commit to every aspect of the certificate exam. Anyone can participate regardless of geographical location, and it provides an opportunity for business students or for busy students to participate in a performance assessment goal. It may inspire students to complete a certificate exam later or for the first time, and it provides an opportunity for students to archive their progress for themselves. So repertoire only, no skills at this point. Our initial offering is just the repertoire badge. In the future, we've got other plans. We'll see how this works, but we could try an ensembles badge or a composition badge. Maybe there's a way to have a technique badge, that kind of thing. We're currently considering those types of things. Right now, though, very much testing the piano repertoire to see how it goes. Requirements at a glance: students register in their portal. They record 3 pieces of repertoire separately at any time whenever each piece is ready. And then when they're ready to submit, they upload the links, the sharing links right through the portal. Links to the final recordings are submitted in the students portal where they registered. The examiner provides concise, streamlined feedback, offering encouragement, critique, and praise. We're pretty heavy on the praise, but also when it comes to critique, it's going to be really focused, more focused on what's just that one next step. We're not going to give them 3 or 4 things that they need to work on or improve on. It's, the next thing. What is the next thing? And maybe even if we can get a sense of it through the recording, how you might go about that. It's something we tend not to do on the exam. There just isn't time to go into the how unless students have mini lessons. When it comes to choosing repertoire, students overall, foremost, encouraged to choose music that's relevant and meaning and fun for them to play. And it can be chosen from the same grade level of the contemporary idioms or classical piano syllabi. And the music can be any mix of style or genre. And they can also use music not on our lists, provided you think it's at the grade level being attempted. So special approval is not required, but you could submit it to, maybe a colleague, another teacher. You can submit it to our office for guidance if you really need, if you're really not sure. But we really do rely on your choice and your judgment in figuring out the level of these pieces. One of the 3 pieces may be of any grade level higher. That's just like our certificate exams, with 2 of the pieces needing to be at the same grade level being attempted. And students may not use the same piece on more than 1 badge level. And students will not need to produce a notated score lead sheet or chart. It's just however they're learning it. It's really good for ear players as well, I think, that don't use music. They can choose to sing while they play, and we call that sing and play. And all music performed must be solo, and only the keyboard part would be assessed. Backing tracks can be used in the performance at the student's discretion. Some people like to play with those backing tracks. We haven't heard a lot of that yet, but it's something that students can do if they feel that that's helping them in some way or adding to the performance for us to hear. Contemporary music can be edited as per the guidelines in our CI piano syllabus to condense the length and make it more playable, make it more level appropriate, that kind of thing. And one of the 3 pieces may be an own composition at this point in time. And later on, we'll have a composition badge, I think. Notes on recording: rather than relying on live performance, students must record their music using video and audio to be assessed for a badge. So we need to be able to see as well as hear. Whatever the student feels comfortable, the process itself can help drive musical awareness and stimulate motivation to improve. And only the link to the final recording is uploaded to the CC portal for assessment. Each of the pieces can be recorded separately if you want. If the student wants to put them all in one link and send them all in one large file, that's okay too. We'll take that. Recording quality is important, but it's not essential for students to participate in this. Very good quality recordings can be made with the smartphone nowadays, with the tablet, with the computer. If you have an external microphone available and a sound module, of course, that's only going to make things a little bit better. But our examiners are getting really good at assessing and listening through things like Zoom, which is not the best platform for listening to audio, but it works, and I think we are getting really good quality assessments, or giving good quality assessments. No editing, no splicing, no mixing audio tracks or overdubbing, just raw audio is what we're looking for. So again, the standard here, bronze is indicative of a 60 to 75% standard, silver 76 to 85, and gold is 86 to 100, using our traditional marking standard that you're all familiar with through our exams. And a numerical mark will not be given or considered. It's just the standing gold, silver, or bronze. And if a minimum performance standard has not been met, then it'll be given a work in progress label. And the student should resubmit, for only half the fee. I think we've got the fees at the bottom here. Levels 1 to 3, the whole process is $49, $59 at levels 4 to 6, $69 for 7 and 8, and levels 9 and 10 is $89. And the retest fee is just about half of that. So a really neat way to work on their standing. Stacy writes a comment here in the Q&A. So thinking about adult students doing this, could the examiner video record their thoughts versus written? That's interesting. It is possible, I guess, but because at some point we hope to be inundated with digital badge assessments, it's probably not going to be practical for us because we don't have a way in our database to upload that kind of feedback. It only has to be written. We have PDFs that we send out so that you get an actual written copy, but that's already coded into the database. If we were to add a video segment to that, it probably cost us a couple $1,000s to have that capability wired into the new database. So we probably wouldn't consider an examiner video. It would probably just have to be written out. But that's a good thought, something we'll definitely think about. Any other questions, comments? This is a look at the syllabus and how it works in its, its nuts and bolts, as it were.
Mm-hmm. In a sense, if a student wanted that verbal feedback, they could sign up for like an online exam, right?
Yeah.
But then it would have to be the whole exam. So there is that mini lesson that they could do online.
Yeah, that's part of the certificate exam. That's right.
Yeah.
The other thing too, sometimes people in that situation, then we sort of blur the lines a bit. Yes, we do mini lessons, but what we don't want to get into is teaching. We don't want to replace the teacher either. Mm-hmm. It's one thing that we're very cautious of. After going through the syllabus, do you have any other thoughts? Liz, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking, going back to our previous thought of these people that don't have teachers that might be putting through, these videos to be assessed. Mm-hmm. Maybe once they get into that process, they'll realize if they do the full exam, then they might get that more of that feedback. So then could be filling a need there.
I think so. Mm-hmm. I think that would work quite well, actually. Yeah. Sandra, do you have any other thoughts after we look through the syllabus there about using this?
Well, the one thing that did occur to me was that the students liked, I think, the idea that the pieces are like, it's very open. They can really play what they're really into, because they don't have to worry about the syllabus. And I think that's like a motivating factor when kids are playing stuff they really want to play, right? So I know a lot of the students were like, "Well, I can play my Pokemon song." I'm like, "Yeah, you're really good." It's at your level, so you could do it. And, oh my gosh, that kind of thing it's fun for them. It's neat that they can use this music that they're really into. So
yeah, that's good. And of course, we can do that on the regular exams as well. It's just somewhat easier and cleaner on the digital badges because you don't have to get approval or anything like that from us for something not on the list. Okay. That's about all we had today, folks. Just wanted to run through this whole digital badge thing one more time here. I know we did it back in the fall as well. For those of you that may have seen an ad or something and were curious about it, we appreciate you joining us. And last time we weren't able to get Liz and Sandra's take on this, having been in on the committee to start the digital badges and create it from scratch. So I thank them both for joining us and providing their anecdotes about how they want to use it and how they see it working in their studios. And if anyone has any questions for us, going forward, feel free to email me, derek@conservatorycanada.ca, and we'll help you out with it. Check the website out, check out the syllabus, see what you think, and give us your feedback. Let us know what you think of how it's going to work for you or how it isn't working, and we can chat about it a little bit further. In the meantime, that's all for today's webinar, folks. We're going to see you next Friday with Eleanor and Cecile, and they're going to talk to us about more women composers, music that's being unearthed in the moment, which is really exciting, and most of it's being published now. We have access to, and we've uploaded to our classical piano syllabus, which is really great. So I hope you can all check that out, and I hope you all have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Oh, Liz, one more thing.
Did you want to do a poll, Derek?
Oh,
did you forget about the poll?
Let's do it. I often forget that. I often forget that. And we have a smaller live audience here, but here's a poll, just a couple questions for you. If anyone's watching here live, those of you on Zoom, if you could take a look at these questions and just answer quickly what you think your answers are. What percentage of your students currently engage in exams? Is the first question. And then number 2, do you see digital badges as a viable alternative for those that cannot commit to a full exam? Do you plan to have students try digital badges in the near future? And how have the number of students engaged in exams changed recently for you in your studio? Increasing, decreasing, about the same? Okay, so what a few of you have been able to figure that out. Thanks. Let's see. Yeah, a number of you working through that now. We appreciate your feedback. Okay, it looks like everyone's excited to try digital badges. That's good to see. And exam numbers decreasing. That's pretty much what we suspected. I'm going to end the poll there. Thanks for taking the time to answer those questions. And thanks for prompting me. I always try and get someone to remind me of these things when they come up. There's just some, you can see the results now. Those of you that are here live, you can see the results of the questions, of how they're answered. So most of you, it's much less than 50% in terms of how many students are doing exams. And all of you plan to use digital badges and see it as a viable alternative to exams. And the majority of you see your numbers decreasing in terms of students engaged in exam, and a couple of you see it about the same. So thanks for that feedback. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. In the meantime, check out Conservatory Canada TV on YouTube, where you'll see all past webinars if you missed any. It's nice to see all those views there for those of you watching after the fact. So bye for now. Take care. We'll talk with you soon. Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Liz.